To your own point about what the aspects of persuasion are here, in a recent poll, your home state, Indiana, 51% of people asked believe that human activity is the reason for climate change. And you would also have to deal with the president in terms of what his administration has done to roll back things. So you may not have a question, but you're going to need some answers. What would you say to the people who say, I'm not so sure about this? And what would you say about the people who say, well, he rolled these things back. What are you going to do to bring them back?
Well, look, some of the things he did by executive action, we can undo by executive action. But this time, let's actually put some legislation behind it so it's not at the whim of a president. But I think the real issue we've got to have, especially in very conservative places like where I live in Indiana, the real conversation we've got to have is about what's at stake here beyond the traditional battle lines that have been drawn. This ought to be a bipartisan issue. This once was a bipartisan issue, and now it's gone completely off the rails. So let's talk about some other dimensions of what's at stake. Let's talk about national security. At a time when our military leaders say that this is one of the greatest threats to stability. There's a lot of evidence that the Syrian civil war is one of the first that was partly caused as a consequence of climate change. If we really want to talk about security, let's talk about securing the lives of future generations. Let's talk in language that is understood across the heartland about faith. You know, if you believe that God is watching as poison is being belched into the air of creation, and people are being harmed by it, countries are at risk of vanishing in low-lying areas, what do you suppose God thinks of that? I bet he thinks it's messed up. And you don't have to be religious to see the moral dimensions of this, because frankly, every religious and non-religious moral tradition tells us that we have some responsibility of stewardship, some responsibility for taking care of what's around us, not to mention taking care of our neighbor. And eventually it gets to the point where this is less and less about the planet as an abstract thing and more about specific people suffering specific harm because of what we're doing right now. At least one way of talking about this is that it's a kind of sin.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more of our CNN climate crisis.